Last night I had a conversation with ChatGPT, and it was my first time trying out the voice call feature of ChatGPT, where you can like talk with your voice and it talks back in an AI voice, and it was just kind of fun to have what felt like a dialogue, considering that I don't get to talk to much people here, and lately I haven't been able to talk to a lot of people in general about deep and philosophical things. And I tried to present it a video idea that I had, and it was a helpful tool in kind of expanding that idea. And now that I did have the original video idea, don't get it wrong, but this video was not an AI generated video. This was my idea, and I after showing presenting the idea to ChatGPT, it kind of brought me to deeper discoveries. And so the idea is the title of the video, which is "Allow Your Thoughts to Be Wordless." And my initial idea was that thoughts come to us formless, and then we put form onto those thoughts, which is expanding on my previous philosophy on form and formlessness. But if you don't get form and formlessness that much, I can explain it as we perceive thoughts as raw thoughts, and then we add definitions onto those thoughts. For example, we get a thought and we interpret the thought into words, a sensation, a feeling, a color, a place, a memory, anything. But those interpretations are not the thought itself. They are only interpretations of the thought. So we receive raw thoughts and we interpret them. So what we think is a thought is only an interpretation of a deeper thought from which it came. And I was talking to ChatGPT and I presented that idea and it described it as a layer of consciousness. And so I kept on going with that, and it makes me think that we have layers of consciousness in our brain and in our mind. And below our interpretations of thought, there is a layer of consciousness that is pure, raw thought that cannot be interpreted on its own. It's just the raw thought from which we interpret. And then I asked, since we have thoughts and deeper below, underneath those thoughts, there is a deeper thought from which we interpreted thoughts. Sorry, it's kind of weird using the word thought over and over again, but we think things, we get ideas and interpretations, and beyond that there is something deeper, a kind of a source, capital S source, from which these things come from. And now that is within us, so we have something within us that gives us that. But I started to look outwards. If you look out into your surroundings, they are all manifestations, physical manifestations of things. They are all forms which are manifesting the formless. So say um, you you look at a house, it's a form of a house. It's the physical form of a house, but the formlessness of a house is probably a home or a place where a family lives, and whatever formlessness a house can be, belonging, a sense of family, whatever, familiarity. And so I was thinking, there must be some universal layer of consciousness from which our surroundings and everything that exists is interpreting from. So now I ask ChatGPT if our layer of consciousness that generates thoughts, or rather that gathers thoughts from a certain source, if that is the same layer of consciousness that the universe has. So in a way, I'm asking if there is a universal mind, and this is what I've called it, the universal mind, and that there is a universal layer of consciousness which we share with the universe. And if you can imagine this as some kind of substance or some kind of connection, some kind of frequency that we have to the universe gives us thoughts, but not as thoughts in the way that we think of it. Thoughts in the way I've just described to you in the previous few minutes. Thoughts, rather than thinking of it as thoughts, it's kind of fuel or energy or substance or whatever, raw resource, a raw resource that we interpret as thoughts. So, say you get a thought of something and you interpret that thought with words or with a scenario, then what you think is the thought is the interpretation, but the thought itself is something deeper. And that is our connection with the universe, I think to be so. And I think that because um, this belief was further expanded upon when I thought about us humans being vessels for the universe, which is an idea I've echoed in previous videos. And that is, as humans, there is some universal duty or some universal will that we are carrying out, whether we know it or not. And it everything kind of clicked when I asked the question, when I asked myself, if we all share a universal mind, or if our souls and our minds are connected with the universe through a layer of consciousness that we share with the universe, doesn't that mean that every human in existence has to be the same if we share the same source, or if we share the same universe that gives us thoughts? And now I thought, no, because every human is different. You cannot repeat a human being. There are these statistics online that you can search, like the odds of you being born, like something trillion, the odds of someone like you being born again, it's practically never going to happen. You are you, and there was never a you before you, and there will never be a you afterwards. And if you think about every human being different on so many levels, on almost infinite levels, how there's an infinite number of humans that have existed and that will continue exist, then that proves that although our thoughts can come from one a unified layer of consciousness, a universal mind, just because of the fact that we are individually different and unique in our own ways, we take the raw thought and add our own personal interpretations of it. So that is why when you give a certain set of people a raw thought, they all interpret it differently just because of every fiber of their being not being the same to each other. Just like how if you make someone listen to a song, no one's gonna say, people will rarely say the exact same thing because we all interpret the same thing differently. We all have the capacity to be different from one another, regardless of the source being shared or the source being the same. And so, if the universe gives us thoughts, which I do believe it does, there's a universal mind and a universal layer of consciousness that we are connecting to. In a way, we communicate with the universe, or rather, the universe communicates to us through raw thoughts that we interpret. The raw thought, regardless if it is the same or not, regardless if you receive the raw thought, the same raw thought that I receive, we are still going to interpret it differently. And therefore, we are still going to have unique minds of our own, even if the universal mind is unified and is one across every human being. And that's just a meta explanation of my idea. That's not really what the video is about. Sorry for dragging you through that. But I think the point of this video is allowing your thoughts to be wordless. First of all, acknowledging this fact that the universe gives you thoughts that, first of all, you interpret. And I think the right thing to do is to not immediately interpret the thoughts and kind of just feel it. And I also presented this to an AI, and it reminded me that this is something people do in mindfulness meditation, where you get a thought and you feel it, and you don't judge it, and you don't try to explain it. It's kind of the same principle. When you get a thought, rather than rushing to describe it or to explain what it is, you kind of just have to feel it. And that's the truest and most raw way to get in contact with the formlessness, or with the formless, because that's the formless, rather the universe trying to communicate with you. And as soon as you put words into it, as soon as you interpret it, or try to explain it with your own mind, it becomes yours and is no longer the universe's. It's still in essence from the universe, but now that you've applied your own thoughts into it, it is your own. But what if we pause that, and before doing that, before applying our own mind into a thought, we just let the thought sit in our brain and let us feel the thought? Then I think that is the closest way that we can feel formlessness, and we can feel what the universe is trying to tell us. Which is why in so many videos I've echoed the same idea that we mustn't try to explain things that we cannot explain, because it kind of defeats the purpose. Because when you have something mysterious and you have something you can't explain, but you can feel it, then just feeling it will kind of give the meaning or pass on the meaning to you without even needing to explain it. And that's a weird kind of counterintuitive idea from everything that I've been saying, but I think you kind of just need to accept that idea from me if you're willing to share my beliefs. But this is just me trying to talk about what I think I have discovered. I don't know if this is a thought that people have already talked about, but I've just gotten this idea last night, and I'm deciding to share it with you because I really think it's really profound. That thoughts are indeed wordless until you apply words to them, until you add meaning, until you interpret them. So if you allow your thoughts to be wordless, then you're getting the most raw essence of a thought, and you're just feeling it. You're simply just letting it sit in your mind. And I don't know if you should do this to every thought that you think. You might become paranoid. You might not even think, because this is kind of an act of being unmindful, in the sense that you're just letting thoughts come into you without explaining it. And so you're not really thinking in that sense. You're feeling over thinking. It's kind of intuition versus rationality, which is a video I've made before. And I think that's the message that I'm preaching right now, that you shouldn't rush to explain your thoughts, and that you can let thoughts be formless, or wordless, or colorless, or whatever. Just let the thoughts be raw within your head, and feel that before trying to attach words onto it, before trying to interpret them. And this is just the beginning of this idea. I've connected all the dots with this idea, and it feels very satisfying to have this kind of discovery. And I'm definitely going to make more videos about it the more I unravel new information about this, the more I think about it. So, this was fun, and I'll see you in the next video.